President Donald Trump planning to open a new immigration front, this time miles from the border.
I call them the illegals. They came across the border illegally. We'll bring them to sanctuary city areas and let that particular area take care of it.
Frustrated at the border, the president is looking inland, taking aim at cities and politicians that oppose his plan to build a wall and lower illegal immigration.
We are looking at the possibility, strongly looking at, to be honest with you.
His proposal? Bus migrants detained at the border into sanctuary cities, largely Democratic enclaves like New York, Chicago, and San Francisco, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's home district.
It's just another notion that is unworthy of the presidency of the United States and disrespectful of the challenges that we face as a country, as a people, to address who we are, a nation of immigrants.
The president threatening to test that proposition.
California certainly is always saying, oh, we want more people, and they want more people in their sanctuary cities. Well, we'll give them more people. We can give them a lot. We can give them an unlimited supply, and let's see if they're so happy.
His plan to punish Democrats, first reported in the Washington Post, coming just hours after White House and Department of Homeland Security officials said it had been rejected back in February because the plan was, in the words of one former official, so illegal. The president's threat coming after months of frustration over the influx of migrants and with his Secretary of Homeland Security, Kirstjen Nielsen, who resigned on Sunday. But before naming Kevin McAleenan as his acting secretary, Trump reportedly told him to shut down the border. And he dangled a presidential pardon for McAleenan if he faced any legal consequences, according to the New York Times. That order to seal the border, an indication of just how serious Trump was last week when he promised to do just that.
Thank you. We'll close the border. Somebody said it will take a year. No, it won't take a year. It'll take a day.
And guys, late last night, the president disputed that he offered McAleenan any sort of pardon, taking to Twitter saying, another fake story on NBC News that I offered pardons. Of course, this is not true. Now, meanwhile, some of the mayors in these sanctuary cities have been taking to Twitter themselves, saying that immigrants are still welcomed in their cities, but they're noting that they don't have the authority to make them stay because cities in America, they've got open borders. Chanel?
Good point, Hans. Thank you.
Joining us now from the Washington Post is White House reporter and NBC News political analyst Ashley Parker. Ashley, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start on immigration if we can here. The president, as we have witnessed, has broken a lot of norms over the course of his presidency, but appears with this sanctuary city idea that he may also be pushing the boundaries of the law. I guess the question is this real or is this just another effort to appeal to his base?
I think it's a great question, and the answer is both. The president has gotten a ton of mileage out of threats and bluster without following through, and his base certainly likes this rhetoric. But the Post reported, and the president then confirmed that this is something he is actually considering, and it's worth noting he sometimes does follow through on his threats. The one question is if it is actually a legal issue and he will be able to do that or he'll face those hurdles.
Let me ask you about the Mueller report as Washington braces for that report in the next few days. Obviously, Attorney General William Barr this week raising the stakes further, saying he believes spying occurred at the beginning of the campaign. Can you put this into context for us? This was supposed to be obviously an independent process, but now it obviously seems political. And are we ever going to get any closer to closure on this?
I think the context is that it is deeply politicized at this point. You're going to see the Republicans in the White House, no matter what we see in that full report, saying that we told you for 22 months this is a witch hunt and they found no collusion. And you're going to see Democrats at the same time going through those 300, 400 pages, picking out the unflattering details for the president, and there should be plenty, and saying that he behaved poorly. And I think it will break down along partisan lines.
Ashley, obviously that's going to be central to the 2020 debate. Immigration is going to be central to the 2020 debate as well. This weekend tomorrow, the 37-year-old mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg, let's make sure we get that right, expected to announce his candidacy for president. It means that the Democrats will have at least 15 individuals running. But Buttigieg has seen a surge in recent days, now only behind Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders in both Iowa and New Hampshire. How viable is this candidacy? Why is he surging, and can it last?
The question of can it last, who knows, we're 2 years out. One thing that people seem to like about him, which is actually in a very different way what people like about the president, is his authenticity, the way he talks about his sexuality, the way his husband has a kind of refreshing, whimsical Twitter presence. And people have also said they like that he offers an antidote to the president in terms of sort of a return to decency and civil discourse. So it's refreshing now, it's catching fire, but who knows if he can sustain that momentum.
Buttigieg looking to become the first openly gay president, the first millennial president, and potentially the youngest ever commander-in-chief. Ashley Parker, thank you very much.
Thank you.